Sanbunan Dumlang, hello, it's Simply Spencer here, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast Simply Do the Work. Now, if you're not yet subscribed, please do subscribe to the podcast and also share it with your friends and family and whomever you come across. And also feel free to reach out to me at Simply Spencer on Instagram and Twitter if you want to give feedback, comments, suggestions, compliments, the works, but obviously be respectful in my DMs and stuff. And so today's episode, I'll be talking about stan culture, celebrity culture, and cancel culture. And I was honestly initially it's something I've actually wanted to talk about for a while on my platforms, but I was initially hesitant to speak on it because I felt like it's not serious enough for the podcast. But then I realized that literally the whole point of this podcast is for me to talk about whatever I want, and it's okay to take a step back from the more heavier topics and speak on something a bit more lighthearted, especially after the last episode, episode 27, I believe. That was a heavy podcast to do, but I feel like it had some really important messages in it. And so I'll specifically be talking about Stan Twitter for this conversation because that's where I'm really plugged into. It's a community that I understand best because I feel like it does manifest, these things manifest differently on the different platforms and in different times, right? And so, the way I've divided this video, I'm going to talk about what is a Stan, how and why I got into Stan Twitter, the issues that I have with stan culture, what I love about it, and that's pretty much the topics I'll be covering. So firstly, what is a stan? So I feel like the term stan has been used very, it has different meanings for different people. It's been used very loosely. I feel like someone will maybe like one song by one person, be like, oh my gosh, I'm such a stan. Like some people, the word stan is equal to a fan for them, right? Whereas I know other people are very hesitant to use the term stan because it was coined by, I believe it was Eminem, and when he was criticizing a very stalker, obsessive fan, right? They see it as an insult to be called a stan. But for me, being a stan is basically, it's just, if I say I stan someone or something, it's something that I'm very much dedicated to, something that I'm very much interested to. I differentiate between people who I am a stan of, people that I am a fan of, and people who I'm just a casual fan of, and then people who I'm just indifferent to. That is just basically what is a stan in my own words, simplified, but you can always look up the definitions out there. And so how and why I got into stan Twitter. So I feel like I've been a stan for the longest time, ever since I was a young teenager, right? The first person I stand was Riri when I was still even in primary school, late primary school, and I wasn't really plugged into social media back then, right? I think the first social media, there was Mixit, Facebook is when I think I could say I started a little bit dabbling into the stand, but it wasn't anything hectic, right? Even when I got Twitter when I was about 15, 16, it was really just following a few update accounts and even following a few Instagram update accounts and watching reaction videos on YouTube. That was really how I engaged with the people I stand, right? But then it was in last year, 2020, when Selena Gomez, she was having a big comeback to music after releasing You Just Love Me in 2019, and I was just so excited. I was talking about her everywhere, and I kind of felt like I was annoying people, right, with my daily Selena Gomez posts. I felt like the people who follow me and my friends, they're not as invested in the girl as I am, and so I created a stan account because I'm like, what, here I can talk freely, I can say whatever I want whenever I want, and not feel like I'm annoying anyone, not feel like I'm messing anyone's TL, and also, be able to meet like-minded people, right? People who have similar interests to me. And, since then, my Stan account has gone through various transformations. I've gone through I guess you could take an R&B phase, right? And I was really going hard for my R&B phase. Pretty much my Stan account, right? It fluctuates depending on what I'm most interested in at that time, right? I talk about K-pop, I talk about the different series that I watch. I'm currently I've rebranded to a Young Royals Stan account, and we will see how long that lasts. But now let's get into the issues that I have with with stan culture, this is probably going to make up the biggest bulk of this podcast. And so the first one is the obsessive need for validation from idols. Like I've seen like TikToks and tweets talking about how, a lot of people who are, deeply invested in stan culture, it could be because of unprocessed trauma, it could be because of mental conditions, right? Now, I'm not in the position to speak on that, right? I mean, but I can see, right? People will be completely devastated when their faves, for example, if you're queer, you found that your fave has a homophobic or transphobic past, right? I've seen people, if they like literally like their faves will do like the bare minimum to support a marginalized community, and they will be like, I'm so glad so and so thinks I'm valid, like I wouldn't be able to live. And it's kind of like, I know it's tough out here in the world, right? Especially now with the pandemic and just everything else. Like every country in the world, I always see, people calling out their governments, and it's just we're living in hell, right? I understand that it's difficult out here, and we're all just trying to, figure out a way to live, to survive, to cope with the best tools we know. But I don't necessarily think that putting all of your heart and devotion into someone who you really don't know is helpful, because then what happens is when this person turns out to not be the person you thought they were, people become devastated, right? It's kind of why I think I did talk about this in an episode, at least in 2020, right? How I don't really expect much from my faves. So like, if you're a singer, give me a good song, right? Give me good songs. Like the only way you can disappoint me is if you're a singer, is if you drop bad music. If you're an actor, I want you to play your characters well. I want to fall in love with the characters that you play, right? It's kind of like, yes, it's kind of like I've sort of, and this is something which I think I've had to learn through like, getting older, is that I've distanced myself from like celebrities' personal lives. Like, I think we can have a conversation about how stans, sometimes I feel like they know too much about their idols' personal lives. It's like things which sometimes that the celebrity in question didn't make public, but is suddenly now on stan Twitter, is circulating. Or even how, and I think this is also like going into my next point, right? How people will hold their faves to unrealistic standards, standards which they themselves do not meet, right? And I think this also talks into the issue of cancel culture, right? I do think that sometimes, and I think just talking more about unrealistic standards before we go to cancel culture, people will be upset at their faves for saying certain things, doing certain, like I've seen people getting dragged for things. I'm like that is, I think the same way. Or sometimes I won't see the issue. For example, I've seen this with K-pop idols, but recently apparently one of the actors from Young Royals, people are trying to cancel them for smoking, and it's kind of like, I understand if you personally, right, you don't smoke. I understand if you don't agree with someone, I don't smoke, right? Like I don't endorse smoking, right? But I don't expect that standard unto other people, right? Like I'm pretty sure we all know people in real life who smoke, right? We might be friends with them, we might be acquaintances, they might be family, but we're not cutting them off because they smoke, right? So why are we setting those standards onto these celebrities just because they're in the public eye and expecting them to be role models? Like some of them, like they really like, especially I feel like now a lot of celebrities speaking out about how I don't want to be nobody's role model. I'm just living my life, especially I think with like the younger celebrities and influencers and idols. Right? I feel like we should give them a little bit more grace, because I often talk about how I'm so glad that I'm not famous or anything, because like having so many eyes on you while still trying to figure yourself out, like Lord knows, like when I see people getting cancelled for stuff that they said on Instagram, I'm like, child, I've had those exact same thoughts, I've said those exact same things, but either A, it wasn't documented on the internet, or B, I'm not famous, so nobody cares. So I literally, like, I grow and I evolve and I move. And so now let us talk about cancel culture. And I want to start with a tweet I saw by user Zion_SD. They said collective cancel culture is not a real thing. When it's faves, we discourse and provide space for redemption, but others get the mighty hand of cancellation swiftly. It's too selective to be an effective strategy. Now I think it's a personal decision one takes to cancel or not. And that's always been my approach to cancel culture, right? It's always been literally because the reality is there's no such thing as an unproblematic person, right? All the celebrities, even the most, even the kindest, most socially aware, have said and done things that are a little crazy, right? I saw another tweet which I did not screenshot it, I did not save it, so I can't say who tweeted it or what exactly it said, but it was saying how basically there's a difference between a celebrity who has a past where they said some really strange, problematic things, and also a bigot who continuously inflicts violence, and us wanting that person deplatformed. It's not the same, right? I feel like sometimes we conflate the issues and the scandals that celebrities get up to with bigotry when sometimes it's not really the case, right? I think it's also like important that we do give people space to grow, but I think also there's a thing of, right, if someone is continuing the behavior, right, if someone, let's say, is exposed for a racist past, for instance, and they're still doing the same shenanigans. I like to take a Jeffree Star, for instance, right? Jeffree Star is problematic, but the thing about cancel culture is the only people who are canceling you are usually not your fans, right? It's usually everybody else who's saying, get them out, get them deplatformed. But your fans are going to stay with you no matter what. Like, Lord knows I have my problematic faves. But the thing is with me is I say I'll never defend mess, right? I'll never defend mess. Like, if my fave is caught up in mess, I will just sit on the sidelines and, I'll evaluate the situation for myself and decide for myself, not let the masses dictate whether or not I still support this person, right? There are some people who I feel like cancel culture did them dirty, right? I think in a way, while, we can't say that cancel culture isn't real, but there are people who, once they have a scandal, things never look the same for them, right? They never, like, the amount of success that they had before that scandal, they're not able to achieve that again, which I think is certainly true, right? But then we also do have to have a conversation. There are some people who are just too big to fail, or too big to really go away. Like, I think of, like Shane Dawson, who, he said at some point he's going to make a comeback, right? The truth is, I never messed with Shane Dawson, right? So whether he's here or not here, it doesn't really affect my life. I don't really notice it. And the truth is, while, a lot of us are saying, how dare he comes back, want him to be gone forever. But, like, did you really expect him to be gone forever? And I'm sure his fans are waiting on bated breath. Like, I don't know, he might be back by the time this. I don't even know if he is, but I really don't keep up with that man. Like, I do, like, sometimes people bring this mess to my TL. But I also saw another interesting tweet that was talking about how, a lot of times we expect people to be cancelled for bigotry, right? Like, and it does happen, right? Like, people will lose brand deals, will lose sponsorships, and, certain appearances will be cancelled. But there'll always be brands that do align with those values, right? There always will be people who won't mind working with, like, racists and homophobes. And so I think when it comes to canceling, it's only when someone is really blackballed by the industry, right? Where literally no one wants to work with them. I think that is when they are truly cancelled. But I think for the most part, even just saying you just want people to be held accountable, that's also a little like, what does that mean? Because nowadays, someone gets caught up for a scandal, they apologize, and then some people accept apologies, some people don't. And it's kind of, I've spoken about this in my K-pop videos, right? Like, for example, with K-pop, literally almost, if cancel culture were real, there would be no K-pop, because all them idols have done something bad. They've got skeletons, or they've got like, or they just do stuff, because I think we're humans, right? But I was saying how if someone has apologized, it's no one's place to force anyone to accept or reject the apology, right? Because another thing is, when someone, and I know this because I've been there, right? When, like, my fave gets called out, there are times when I'm really just waiting for the apology so that it becomes socially acceptable to support them loudly again, right? Like, there are people who I support in private because I'm like, if people know I'm supporting this person, it's gonna be, all hell will break loose. But I mean that, and I don't mean in the sense that like like they're not super problematic, but they're just those people that not everyone likes. It's like, I don't want to deal with mess in my mentions for tweeting about this person. And so yeah, like cancel culture is just, it's a lot. You have people who will say, like, people that we don't even know, right? We'll be calling them out, like, y'all trying to cancel me. It's like, we don't even know who you are. How can we cancel you? But this brings me on to the next issue I have, which is the performative activism and using serious issues as stand wars. I saw it when I was on Serenade Twitter, but I see it a lot in K-pop Twitter, right? Like, for example, a big issue within the K-pop community is the issue of idols appropriating different cultures, right? But specifically black cultures. And so what would happen is so and so group, like insert group name, they will be called out for appropriating or being culturally insensitive. You speak out about it. Someone looks at your profile and says, "Oh no, but you support this group," and they've done the same thing. And it's like, yes, but we're currently talking about this. Like, I specifically saw that issue when I put up a video earlier this year, I put up a video on my YouTube channel called K-pop's Ignorance and Anti-Blackness. And some of the comments, I feel like most of the comments, people understood the message I was trying to talk about. I was just trying to raise awareness to the issue. And even within that video, I contest, or I discussed, like, even my own internal conflict about supporting the industry and supporting certain idols, right? Like, at that time, I was talking about, like, the issues that were present at that time was Han from Stray Kids was called out for a rap he wrote where he used certain slurs, and then also a member, I believe it was G-Idol, can't remember exactly, I believe it was G-Idol, who took a picture next to who took an inappropriate picture next to, like, a Nazi official. And I had people in my comments, specifically, it was more, I think, the G-Idol fans, right, who were like, why are you only mentioning her? There's so many other people who've done things. And it's like, first of all, did you even watch the whole video? Not my point. But it's like, as soon as you try to raise awareness on one issue, people will start pointing fingers at your face, at others, and they'll start saying that, no, you're not, you can't speak on my face because they've done. But it's like, listen, my face, maybe they had their day in court, right? They had their day when they were called out, or if not, then we can have all conversations, right? But don't try to divert attention away from your fave, because wrong is wrong. At the end of the day, that's the thing, right? Wrong is wrong, whether it is my fave or your fave, whether I'm indifferent to the person, right? Also, people will sometimes say, if you're not a fan of this person, you can't speak on this issue. But it's like, no, if they did wrong and I see it, I have the right to say, hey, this is wrong. Hey, this situation, this shouldn't be happening. And it's kind of like, even just the performance of it, right? You'll have people who have Black Lives Matter in their bios on Twitter, but then they'll be making excuses for their racist faves. Like an incident specifically that I remember. And so I'm naming names just for the sake of the example. I'm not throwing shade to this person, but let me not say the name. Yeah, I'll say it. I remember making a tweet about, and it was such a, sometimes you just tweet something you don't even think twice about. Like, it's just like, it's not that deep to you. Something along the lines how Camilla's fan base is the only fan base that I like, but I dislike their faith because Camilla's fan base minds their business. Like, literally, like, I felt like they did at that time. I was like, they mind their business. They, they support their faith. They keep it cute, even though, Camilla, people be dragging her every single day. And then suddenly I had a ton of Camilla stands in my mentions, be like, why don't you like her? 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 And I was like, and I tried to play the whole situation off as a joke, because it wasn't like, I was like, no, just my black spirit just can't with her, like my ancestors, blah blah blah. Like, I can't remember exactly what I said, but something about how just my spirit doesn't vibe with her, like me and my black self, we just can't vibe with her. And at that time, I had a little 7 in my name on Twitter, which the 7 is like, like army BTS fans. And so people started flooding my mentions with clips and videos of BTS's anti-black past, which for me was, first of all, very triggering to watch. Like no one wants to see anti-blackness, right? If you're a black person, I don't need to see that, right? And it really, like, it got so bad I had to deactivate my account. Like, it was the first time when I got like masses of hate. It was literally such a, when I think about it now, like literally explaining it, saying it out loud, it's like, what the hell? Is that what they were mad about? And it's just mess. And that's why I mean, like, performative activism. It's like, okay, like, what about the mental health of black people, right? Like I often, like I said in the previous episode, right? First of all, me being a black person doesn't make me an expert on blackness and race, right? I also, like the tweet I read, right? It is quite selective, right? There are some people who you could say I've given a pass. Like with Camilla, to me, I was like, I'm indifferent to her, right? But when she had that racist scandal, that is when I stopped vibing with her, right? I actually used to be a Camilla fan. Like, I used to love her music. But when she had that, I kind of stopped, and I haven't been able to revisit her music since then. But then with other people, right, sometimes I will come up with all types of justification, rationalizations, and I think that just speaks to just the complexity of being a person, It's also why I often say I'm not the morality police. I'm not going to police who... Sorry, I don't know what happened to my voice. I'm not the one to police who you can and cannot support, who you should or should not support, because Lord knows I have my problematic faves, right? Also, I feel like I'm not the one to say who should and shouldn't have a platform either, because also the question I often ask myself is, what do I gain? What do I gain? And, the final point I have here is just the general toxicity and the mob mentality of stan culture, which I've kind of spoken about, like, with that incident of just having a ton of Camilla stans in my mentions because I said I don't like their fave, and also I think about that incident, I'm like, okay, but what is the end goal, right? Now you're in my mentions, you're sending me all these horrific anti-black clips, right? You're showing me, you telling me, calling me all types of names, all these threats. Will that make me like Camilla any more or any less? It's like, what is the end game, right? I've seen there've been a ton of articles and celebrities calling out just the toxic nature of people's stands, right? We can have the conversation, sorry, I bumped the mic, about how there are celebrities who weaponize, right, the fact that they have a large fan base, right? Like sometimes when a celebrity will tweet at someone with a small platform, and then that person gets a lot of hate, and the celebrity is like, oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention. But it's like, what did you expect? If you have 40,000 followers on Twitter and you quote me who has like 200, like, what did you expect to happen, right? Maybe I'll give some celebrities, especially I guess the young ones who are still maybe like new to fame, the grace, okay, maybe they were naive, to the fact that it can be dangerous for them to just weaponize their fame like that. But I think also at the same time, there is this idea that celebrities need to control their fans, need to tell their fans and stuff. It's like these are a group of individuals who've come together. Like, if they've decided that they're gonna come for you, like, even if the celebrity, I mean, there was a time when like Beyonce told the Beehive to stop harassing this other woman, and the Beehive told Beyonce to mind her business. Like, what can happen is what I'm trying to say. But now I want to just talk about what I love about Stan Twitter specifically. First of all, it's a space where I get to talk about my interests. I really love the fact that there I can freely just talk about whatever I'm interested in, whatever I like, and I'm able to find a community of people with like-minded interests, right? Because also I find that, for example, let's take like Selena Gomez. Like a lot of my friends do listen to her, like, casually, but they don't know all her songs like I do, right? They haven't watched all her movies. They don't keep up with her like that, and so it's very hard to have a conversation with someone who it's sort of like I'm gonna have to feed you all the information, right? So if I go on Twitter and I tweet about it, then there are people who reply to me, and we both can have this back and forth dialogue because we're both familiar with the subject, and this is whether it's like a movie or a TV show. But also something which was sort of like a byproduct, I found that Stan Twitter was like a safe space for me to be authentically myself, because a lot of the people, I'm like, my Stan account, literally, I think only a handful of IRLs like have access to the account. The rest do not know the ad, like do not like the rest don't know like that account. But like, and so because the people on the account don't know me in real life, I'm able to be myself in the sense that I'm able to speak my mind. I'm not scared about offending anyone. I'm not. It's been a really, especially in the pandemic, right? In the time when we can't go out to meet people, it's been a space where I could like vent and talk about how I feel without having to coddle or think about, oh my gosh, how's this person gonna feel if I post this? Because it's good to have a space to vent things out. And to be honest, I've also learned quite a lot from my interactions, and I've like I said, like I've seen people get cancelled for things that I used to think, and that sort of made me go back, do the work, do the reading, and like sometimes I'll be like, oh, actually, okay, now I understand why this person got cancelled, or let me say, now I understand why people are calling this person out, because cancel culture. Those people are still here, like they're still here, most of them. And so like, okay, now I'll learn better, right? Now I know better, I'll do better. And yeah, that pretty much sums up this. It's for this video, I wanted to keep it a lot more, with this podcast rather, I wanted to keep it a lot more conversational, right? I didn't do too much research on it. I wanted to keep it light. This is almost like I don't want to say it's a rant, but it's just me speaking my mind on things. And so there are some incredible videos on YouTube by Tinwa and Baby Gang that I feel like criticize scan culture well, but they also make valid points, because I feel like right now a lot of discourse can be quite negative and uninformed, right? And so I just wanted to share my thoughts on this topic, and so I'd love to hear yours. Feel free to reach out to me at Simply Sfisa on Instagram and Twitter. Like I'm thinking of maybe posting this on YouTube, so if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment down below. And yeah, like I don't know, like this recording this is quite a challenge. Like my voice was giving out quite a lot. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to film or record 2 podcasts back to back, but we live and learn. So until you see me or you hear from me in the next one, I love you so much. Mwah.